sorry about that. I'm not done yet. We are definitely, well, I guess we're back. Okay, we're here. Hold on. Why am I zoomed in like that? That's craziness. That's better. Well, I pushed the wrong button and something went on. So I was actually trying to adjust a setting about my microphone. It never fails. Something always happens. So stand by one more moment while I do this and switch over to the correct preset. And now I should be a little less distorted and obnoxious. And it's just about 4 o'clock, so I'm just going to go with it. It's Thursday, and that means, of course, that what does that mean? It means this is the podcast lawyer. Gosh, I'm just all kerfuffled today, and it's the podcast lawyer, and we are going to talk about a few topics today. I've got a shout out to give to a friend of the show, and then we're going to answer a question about fair use, and we're going to talk about defamation. Last week, I talked to you about a defamation case against a podcaster, but I didn't really get into the nitty-gritty of what is defamation, so I thought I would do that today. So we'll be right back right after this. Okay, I'm back, and hopefully I'm a little more pulled together now because I got caught off guard. Apparently I had a hotkey that was set that I didn't know about. In any event, hi, I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and I am glad to be here for you today, as I am every Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And I'm here to answer questions about the law as it relates to podcasting and digital media, live streaming, you name it. I'm here to help out with getting your legal questions answered and getting you on the straight and narrow so you can achieve the great kinds of success that I know we all aspire to. So that's great. First off today, I want to say if you have a question or a comment, I hope you will pop in and say hello and put it in the comments. Even if you don't have a question, say something in the comments so I know you're here and we can visit a little bit. But right now, I just want to say a big thank you to my friend Jody Krangle from the Audio Branding Podcast, who sent me this beautiful mug. Jody is terrific, and she's a voice actor, voice artist, as well as an audio maven, I guess you could say. I hope you don't mind me calling you a maven, Jody. Audio branding is her thing. It's her message, and it is definitely worth giving a listen to the Audio Branding Podcast with Jody Krangle. So thank you for the mug. I will use it well. Thank you again. Okay, our first topic for today is to talk about this. Oops, that's not the right thing. I don't have my preset set. Okay, I had a question. It says, I have a question about fair use. I want to do a podcast about both basic and advanced grammar. I have 3 main books that I used, so my lessons would come from them. Other than the way the information was organized, there's nothing special about the books. The majority of the information can be found online. My concern is this: does fair use require me to obtain permission to use the source material that I've purchased, or because it's for educational purposes and I won't be making money off my shows, is it not an issue as long as I don't read the book verbatim? All right. Got a lot to unwind in here. As long as you're not reading the book verbatim, you're probably okay. But there's another red flag in here. Certainly reading a book verbatim, that's going to be infringement of copyright. The author's expression of the ideas and materials selected and included in the book, that expression is protected by copyright. So you can't read it verbatim. But the actual selection of the material and the way it's organized is another component of the author's original creative input and creation of the work. So if you are organizing the material in the same way as that author of that book or those books, and that organization and selection has some degree of originality, in other words, it's not just alphabetical or numerical or chronological or something like that, then the way it's selected could be a copyright protected subject matter as well. But let's assume for the moment that the selection is either a fairly obvious common one, or you're not copying that material, the selection and organization exactly. And you're selecting from several books, so it's not a copy of any one. So yes, if the information is out there, information is free. Ideas and facts and formulas are all free. So it's not fair use that we're talking about here. It's just that it's not original material, so there's no copyright infringement happening, or you're not copying, right? Fair use is a defense to claims of copyright infringement that essentially says it's not infringement because it's fair use, and that is certain kinds of uses. But do not fall into the trap of assuming, hey, I'm not making any money off my show, so it's fair use. That is not how it works. It's not about whether you're making any money. And don't fall into the trap of believing, hey, it's educational, it's automatically fair use. The analysis for fair use is a much more complicated analysis that involves 4 different factors. Purpose and character of the alleged infringing use is one of those factors, but it's not it doesn't dispose of the issue. So if it's educational, that's more likely to be a finding of fair use, but you've still got 3 other factors. Those other 3 factors are the nature of the original. If you're reading from textbooks, if you're working from textbooks, those are also educational. So you're the same category. So that's going to push you away from fair use. So now you've got it back to sort of equal balance. How much you're taking, the amount and substantiality of the portion that you're used, that is the third element. And it depends. How much do you use? If it's just a quote here and a quote there, it's probably not a big deal. But if you're doing entire passages or chunks or whatever, it could be a bigger issue that is not fair use. And then the fourth factor is not about your making money, but the potential impact your use has on the market for or value of the original. So if your podcast or your video or whatever you're making would work as a substitute for buying that book, you're having a harsh impact on that market, on that value, and that could weigh against fair use. So we have to weigh all 4 of those elements and then sort of overlay this question of, well, is it transformative? Is the nature of the use different in character, and does it transform the original into something new? And I'm not just talking about a change of medium. So in this instance, I don't have enough information to say whether or not it's fair use. But if you're not reading verbatim and the information, the organization isn't something that's particularly original and unique or extraordinary, I would say you're probably okay to be incorporating the information. After all, that's what teaching is finding, synthesizing, and presenting information. We don't invent the stuff we teach. We find it, we learn it, we find another way to present it. So that's that. Otherwise, I'd be reading those 4 factors I could read those 4 factors out of a book, but I'm teaching them the way you need to hear them. Okay, so that's fair use. Now, does anybody have any questions or comments for me? Please drop them in the comments. I love to hear from you. Love to just say hi. So make a note, make a comment, and let me know. And I'd love to chit chat with you. The next topic I want to cover is about, well, first of all, let me do this little quick call to action. I want to say the Podcast Lawyer is brought to you by the Legit Podcast Pro group here on Facebook. If you are serious about podcasting, and it's not, my transitions aren't working. All right. Well, if you're serious about podcasting, I would love it if you would come over and join the group at Legit Podcast Pro. There we go. Here we go. And nothing's working today. I don't know. Anyway, legitpodcastpro.com gets you onto the mailing list and into the group. We are closing in on our 600th member. There's going to be a prize for the 600th member. And if you are already a member and you invite the 600th, you will also receive a prize. So stay tuned. And that's that. All right. So the next subject I want to talk about is defamation. Last week, I talked about a defamation case that is going against a podcaster. And that podcaster reached out to me for help with the defense and so on. So I just wanted to sort of talk through what that kind of a case really is about. Defamation is a category of cases that involves both libel and slander. Slander is the spoken word version of defamation. That is, when you say something that hurts somebody's reputation in an interpersonal spoken word kind of an environment, you are engaging in slander. When that goes into electronic media like podcasting or radio or television, or when you publish it in a newspaper, it becomes a different flavor of defamation called libel. But libel and slander are basically the same thing. There's a few nuanced differences that won't matter for our conversation today. In any event, what is defamatory? What is a libelous or slanderous statement? Well, here it is. The elements of a case for slander or libel are this: false statement. Statement has to be false. It has to be factual in nature. We'll talk about that in a minute. It has to have been actually published, that is made public to people beyond just the person about whom it's said and the person making the statement. So made public, published, that is of or concerning a particular person, an identifiable person. So saying all chiropractors are charlatans would not be defamatory, but saying Dr. Smith on Elm Street is a charlatan would be. And it has to cause damage or harm to the reputation. So a false factual statement that's published about a person, of or concerning a person, that causes harm to that person's reputation is what we have for slander or libel. All right, so libel, L-I-B-E-L, by the way, has a couple of different defenses. A couple things you need to know about this. Actually, first, before I go into the defenses, let me talk about the extra element that needs to be proven if the person who is complaining that they've been slandered or libeled is a public figure or a public official, like a member of the government or a police chief or even a police officer. I think if you're talking about the work they do in their duty, they're a public official. They have to prove an extra element of actual malice. Actual malice means that the person who made the statement, the false statement, knew it was false or acted with reckless disregard for the truth. So knew or should have known it was false, basically. If that's the case, then they've proven the extra element of actual malice. This is a protection sort of under the First Amendment. We're saying, look, people who have the benefit of a public office or public visibility, they can get the word out to counter the defamatory material, and they need to have a thicker skin about this kind of thing, basically. Okay, so assuming we have made the case, it's a false factual statement published of or concerning the plaintiff, and it's caused actual harm to reputation, then we have a few things to defend about. First of all, it has to be a false statement, so truth is necessarily a defense. And we can get into arguments about what's true and what does truth mean, but we're not talking about alternate facts here. We're talking about if you can prove to the jury that the statement was actually true, then the case goes away. Statements that are of opinion are not libel. Now, it's not a fact; it's an opinion. I hold the opinion that so and so is a bad person. That's not a fact. That's an opinion. And in the case that I was telling you about last week, the complaint really talks about a handful of opinion statements about this particular company business that is in the crosshairs of the statements. I didn't see a whole lot of factual stuff in there that is false, and frankly the statements were made with sources, so there was some backup for the truth of them in any event. So truth is a defense, opinion is a defense. Hyperbole, rhetorical hyperbole, if it's obvious to the recipient of the message that the message is a joke, is a sarcasm or something like that, then there's no damage because they know it's not intended to be a true statement, right? So that works. If it's a joke in the context of a comedy performance or even just clearly obviously a joke, then again, audience doesn't perceive it as factual, they perceive it as a joke, not defamatory. And last year we had an interesting case that came up involving Tucker Carlson, who made some statements publicly on his show that he got him sued. And in the course of the defense of the lawsuit, his and Fox's lawyers came on into court and said, hey, it's Tucker Carlson. Nobody takes him seriously. Nobody thinks this is real factual stuff. So here's this guy sitting behind a news desk telling stories to the American public and speaking in a tone of authority and with the intention of sharing information. But because it's Tucker Carlson, because of who it is, hey, nobody takes him seriously. It's just rhetoric. It's just hyperbole. It's just, bogus. And everybody knows it. So of course it's not defamatory. And the court bought it and said, no defamation, case dismissed. So those are some of the kinds of things that we get into with cases for libel and slander. And there's that. So as a podcaster, I had a conversation with a client today who was asking questions about this. And that's sort of what prompted me to do this conversation today. If you are doing a show where you review products or services or films or whatever, and you share your reviews of these things, those are your opinions, right? But if you have a show where you bring on guests and interview them and they tell their truth, their story, those statements that they make could be factual about a person or business that cause harm to reputation and so on. So you, the host of the show, could be liable for the things that your guests say on your show. And if you form your opinion that you then share of whatever it is, based on what you learn from those guests that you interview, then your opinion could be based on faulty facts. And so you could get into that sort of reckless disregard for the truth kind of thing as well. So be careful. If you hear a guest on your show say something that you think is a little questionable, a little unbelievable, say something about it. Hey, that's a little hard to believe, don't you think? Or, where do you get that? Or what's the backup for that? Press them on the issue. Be a journalist about this kind of thing. If they say something that's completely off the wall, say, hey, that's just your opinion. There's another side to the story, and you can sort of express that. If you seem to be accepting and supporting the statement that's made, you could be liable as well for libel. So there's that. Welcome in. If you're watching, catching the tail end of this now, I'd love to say hello. If you've got a comment or a question, drop it in the comments below this video. And if not, then it's nice that you were here. I have talked about these topics for today: fair use and using material from texts and things like that. I've also talked about defamation, both the elements of a defamation case, a false factual statement that's published about a person or an entity that causes harm to reputation. And the defenses are truth, opinion, hyperbole, jokes, and the sort of preposterous, well, nobody believes Tucker Carlson, so nobody thinks he's telling the truth, so it's not defamatory. We're going to be watching, there's another big defamation case coming up against, I've forgotten her name, a lawyer who came out and was accusing the voting machine company of fraudulent activity in connection with the election. And that lawsuit will be proceeding in the courts over the next year or two. So keep an eye out for that as well. And that's it. Also, just a quick one more time shout out to Jody Krangle for this beautiful, thank you for this beautiful audio branding podcast mug. That was a gift from Jody. Thank you so much for that. And if you haven't listened to Jody's show, you should. It's terrific. And she's always got something interesting and useful to say. So with that, I think I'm going to say thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. And I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer. And I'll be back next Thursday, remote, live from Podcast Movement Conference in Nashville, Tennessee. And I will look forward to seeing you there. If you have, if you're going to be there, maybe we can do it together. Who knows? Let me know. Reach out to me. And if not, tune in, and I'll maybe give you a little tour of the venue. So that's that. I'll see you very soon. Thanks for watching.